Oh, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see people in this room. And we have a very interesting session that is about to start. The session is titled Advancing Solutions for Internet Inclusion, and it is under the umbrella of IEEE. But what does it really mean? How can we advance those solutions? And there are three dimensions in which we work. It's a connectivity at the physical layer, or technologies that enables us to be connected, and the frameworks that allow us to be connected. And as you know, a lot of people in this world still don't have internet connectivity, so we hope to solve this problem. But the problem is not just a technical issue. The issue is also an interaction of policy and technology in the space of internet connectivity in general, and especially when it comes to the issues of privacy and security. As you probably know, a lot of issues today that are being solved and in works in progress stem from the fact that policymakers often make policies as a consequential reaction to the new technologies developed, and quite often technologies develop implementations and solutions that are not aware of what policy implications may be created or what policy it may be stepping on. So that's another disconnect. It's a disconnect between the camp of technologists and the camp of policymakers. And the third dimension that we also need to talk about is technologies, in most cases, are global. They span across the globe. Bits and bytes don't really know the boundaries. Electrons flow pretty much through any wire or space that we can give them. But policies are very localized. And that's not only on the level of countries. Sometimes it is actually on the level of much smaller than a country. As an example, I live in New Jersey in the United States. And recently I learned that New Jersey, as a unique state in the US, has a special law that governs information availability on ODB connector of car. Why, I don't know, but apparently there is a unique out of 50 states law that exists in New Jersey. So what we're trying to do here in Internet Initiative under IEEE is to bring multidimensional connectivity together. Connectivity among people, connectivity among camps of policymakers and technology developers, connectivity among various regions. So that's kind of a brief introduction of what the session is going to be about. A couple of words about myself. I come from the private sector. I'm a technologist. I work in IoT space, and internet as an enabling platform, enabling technology is a key to us. My name is Oleg Logvinov, and I have been a technologist probably for the last 30 years, but lately have been mostly dealing with issues of business, because business is much more difficult to develop than technology. You can put together an implementation, but then find a marketplace for it is really a most challenging task you can imagine. And policy enables or disables technology proliferation in most cases. So I started paying attention to that type of issues and found a very interesting place in IEEE called Internet Initiatives that I have been chairing for the last 3 years that actually focuses on those three dimensions and helps us all to come together. I also happen to chair IEEE P2413 standard focused on definition of architectural frameworks for IoT, where we pay a lot of attention to privacy and security issues. And I'm very pleased that together with a distinguished panel we have here today, we will be able to dive into this multidimensional task of trying to discover what solutions we can bring to the humanity to essentially proliferate pervasive connectivity and internet that all of us can use to our own benefit. So with that, what I would like to do, I would like to go through a very brief round of introductions around the table. And after that, we will start seeing what we have done in this initiative. And we have done a lot. We actually put a lot of discussions that exist today in local environments on the global stage. And becoming connected does not really mean only becoming connected through the means of technology. Becoming connected also means connecting in our own efforts and doing something together. That's why we have gone around the world. We created a number of events where we brought technologies and policymakers together. We created vibrant conversations, which you will hear about today. And through those conversations, we expose the issues that need to be solved to the global stage. If you go to our portal that is available today online, you will start learning about wonderful pieces of information that you can find, but it's also visionary pieces of writings that people involved in this initiative have created. It is a tremendous creativity that can be harnessed here and put to work so we can actually create connectivity in all of those three dimensions. So Chris, why don't you start and we'll go around the table.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher Januzzi. I'm the Executive Director of the IEEE Photonics Society, and that's sort of my main day job. Apart from that, I serve as a technical lead to the IEEE Internet Initiative, and my job in that capacity is to bring to bear the members of the IEEE societies. There are 40 of them, each with a different technical focus. On this, I bring that to bear on the Internet Initiative so that we have all these various technical disciplines represented within the IEEE. Almost all of them touch Internet policy, Internet governance at this point. And so all those technologists that we represent in those groups can help inform policy and conversely can also be informed by policy so that as they're doing their work as technologists, they understand the policy implications of the things that they develop. As you'll hear as you introduce the other panelists who are all affiliated with the IEEE, there's a great diversity of technical expertise that we bring to this, and they'll show that, and that's really what we do at IEEE, is try to bring all the world's technologists working in engineering issues together in a forum where we can advance technology for the benefit of humanity, and that really is the mission of the IEEE. And so with that, I'll pass it on to my next presenters.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Minjan. My day job is slightly different. I teach at UNC Charlotte. I am Associate Professor of Communication Studies at UNC Charlotte. I'm also affiliated researcher with the Center for Global Communication Studies at Penn. In addition to that, I'm doing work in the space, mostly writing and researching in the space of Chinese internet. I'm very interested in Chinese internet technologies and policies, and that's why I think I was invited in to become part of this initiative. And so I'm also a member of a research community. We gather every year for a conference called the Chinese Internet Research Conference, talking about anything from technology topics to policy topics and to ethnography and so on and so forth. So I'm involved in multiple societies interested around this topic of Chinese internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. Limor?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Limor Schmerling. I'm a regulator of technology from the Israeli Privacy Protection Authority. I have been in this business for the last 9 years or so. I've spent a few years at the Israeli high-tech industry before that. And my main interest in this initiative is the fact that I've realized that in order to create a regulation that actually is implemented and is actually followed, it takes more than just enforcing at the local level. So my first interaction or interest in this IEEE initiative is the fact that I can bring my powers to create policy and to frame policy to the industry, to engineers, and to learn from them what may work and what is reasonable and what we should be doing instead of just sitting in my own ministry and thinking of ideas that may not be even feasible. The second interest I have here is the fact that I could have been doing this at the Israeli institution for standards, but the fact is that we have here a global issue. It is not enough that at the local level in Israel, I may introduce privacy protection into local standards. I think the job is to come together with international groups and try to influence standards internationally. This way, we may have influence over the whole global environment. So I really appreciate the invite and look forward to our discussions.
Thank you very much, Limor. One.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. I'd like to also thank IEEE for organizing the panel and to the host country for the amazing hospitality. My name is Juan Gonzalez. I'm with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I'm the Senior Strategist and Director for Cybersecurity Standards for Homeland Security. I lead the development of standards for international organizations for the U.S. government, especially the Department of Homeland Security. And we work together to build the best practices and build capacity and provide those areas, share those areas around the world with the stakeholder community. So we engage domestically with the private sector and the public sector to be able to share the expertise that we develop internally. But we also seek the opportunity within these forums to be able to provide the information that we gather and share the expertise and at the local level and what we do in terms of cybersecurity and securing devices, specifically within the IoT area. And I will expand more on that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Ning?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ning Kong from CINIC. I work for China Internet Network Information Center, and this organization in charge of the .cn CCTLD registry. So my job is follow on the internet protocols and ICANN policies about the domain name system and the IP address. So, and I'm very happy to be the panelist to discuss with you guys today. And another point is that when I was a PhD candidate, my research was focused on the Internet of Things naming system. I tried to make clear what kind of new challenge from the Internet of Things to the name system and whether DNS is a suitable protocol for the future Internet of Things. So I think maybe I can share some understanding from mine to the panel today. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Osama?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Osama Manzar from Digital Empowerment Foundation in India. We are an organization who work in the remotest part of the country to provide connectivity and digital linkages. Thank you for getting us on this panel. This is interesting, connecting the unconnected. That's what we live for and live day in, day out. I would like to highlight 3 points in the introduction before we get into the detail, is that there are 2 aspects of connecting the unconnected. The unconnected people are always subject to policies and technologies which they do not understand, do not know, and they are always being talked about without really becoming part of the discourse, in any kind of discourse, really all over the country, all over the world. And the second part is how connectivity itself is creating a digital exclusion is something that is very interesting that we need to talk about. Because various policies are taking us online, and everything is going online without really providing access to the people who really need it, and subject to the online exclusion. So these are the 2 or 3 points that we would like to talk, and if you want to have fun, we can also talk about net neutrality, Facebook, and other things, how they couldn't do well in India, and things like that, yeah. Digital Empowerment Foundation. My Osama Manzar is my Twitter handle. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this great introduction. So you can see we have a very diverse group of people representing pretty much a lot of places around the world, so the discussion today will be very interesting. As I mentioned at the beginning, we started off from the concept of events that bring local conversations to the global stage. And that is very key because issues we're dealing with are very unique regardless of where you are, and people have a lot of interest in solving them on a local stage. But what's very interesting is when you start drawing parallels and learn from expertise that has been developed in one place and can be parlayed or shared with another place, you discover that there are more commonalities and differences. And we can actually draw from each other's expertise and through the collaboration help overall progress to accelerate immensely. So what I would like to do through the next phase of our discussion is really to go around the room and explore a little bit personal takeaways from each one of our panelists. from each event that took place, as an example, in Washington, D.C., in San Jose in U.S., or in Tel Aviv in Israel, or as an example, what we've done in India, and so forth and so forth and so forth, or what we have done in China, as an example, and draws the parallels among the discussions and ideas and thoughts and problems that we have discovered in those discussions, and solutions that potentially can be brought to the table, that we can all share and benefit from. So, Chris, maybe you can start. As I mentioned,
Sure.
we had events in three dimensions, and dimensions are connectivity as an enabling component to drive essentially elimination of the digital exclusion and not allowing everybody to connect to the internet. And we've done a lot of those events under the umbrella of IEEE, where we brought technologies to really think about practical solutions, how we can move it forward. So please.
Sure. So I think one of the most important things we've done with the Internet Initiative is when we got, well, let me back up a little bit. When we got into it, we realized an integral part of Internet governance is ensuring that there are people there to be governed by the Internet and to take advantage of the Internet. And so connectivity sort of rose to the top of the challenges we needed to address with the Internet Initiative. And so working with the US State Department, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, the World Bank, ISOC, a bunch of other groups too, the People-Centered Internet, for example, we launched, we took part in the Global Connect initiative with US Secretary John Kerry. And really what came out of Global Connect was the sort of, the global issue of, that you mentioned earlier, Osama, about the digital divide growing and how we need to eradicate that. And so Global Connect seeks to do that. And we convened first in Washington, D.C. It was really a wonderful event that brought together people from all over the world to talk about not just the issues and the challenges of connecting the unconnected, but actual get to action. We tried to have a bias toward action. That was really something that I think is critical in an initiative like this. And so one of the things that I think came out of this that was so important, and if you want to learn more about it, you can actually meet the students who are making this happen on the ground. We met with a group of students who were IEEE members at our chapters in Tunisia. And so this is a great example of Oleg's point of, you know, local people doing global issues. So we had a group of students who were IEEE members working at their local chapter at their university in Tunisia, realizing the importance of connecting the unconnected in the rural areas of Tunisia. And they set out to do it. This is a group of a couple of students working with the IEEE and the People-Centered Internet. We've really helped them coalesce a group of folks nationally in Tunisia to fund and to give them the support that they need to make this connection happen. They've already got 2 schools online now, and their goal is very ambitious, is to get all the high schools done by 2020. And this is a massive effort run by a couple of college students. They're all undergrads. And I think this really, to me, is at the heart of what IEEE does. It showcases many different things. One, our global reach. We have as many members in Asia as we do in the United States. We have members in South America, Africa, Europe, all over the world. We have thousands of chapters all over the world. We represent all different technical disciplines. All these things are coming together through this effort in Tunisia to connect that entire country's schools to the internet. And it's a very scalable effort, and that's what I love about it, that there are things we're going to learn there that we can replicate elsewhere. Obviously, there's regional differences that are unique and different challenges in every region of the world. But lessons learned are lessons learned, and we can amortize those lessons across all these other projects. And I think that's what Global Connect is to me. I think that's what the value of the Internet Initiative is. And I would encourage everybody here to go to the IEEE booth upstairs in the hall, meet with the Tunisia students, find out what they're doing, how they got it started, and we'd be happy to talk about doing projects, connectivity projects around the world. We've got a lot of resources in the IEEE. As I said at the start, we have 400,000 members. Volunteer army, you could not ask for more experts in any field that deals with electrical engineering. So I think that's a great example of why we're here today. So with that, I'll save the rest for later in this, and I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, you participated in our ETAP events, where we brought experts in technology and policy together, and we had discussions between technologists and policymakers. What is your takeaway?
Piggybacking on, you know, the point about connectivity, and I will say a few words first about the Chinese context, and then move on to talk a little bit about the point of, you know, technology and policy. And so historically, China actually connected to the internet in 1995. in about 20 years, China has propelled itself into a global economic powerhouse as well as a technological powerhouse. Economy-wise, 500 million Chinese people have been lifted out of poverty, right? And that give people the country the base for technological development. And it's also home to a lot of recognized now internet companies, including Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, all these now recognized as global powerhouse. And today, China has roughly 700 million Chinese internet users, and over 1 billion people having internet, having mobile phone access. And so this is sort of the context for Chinese internet connectivity. And next, I will speak about sort of the recent policies and debates that I think are important for us to think about larger issues of connectivity, as well as specifically issues of Internet of Things, which frame our discussion earlier. I will speak about 3 aspects. The first aspect is sort of the idea, we've Internet globally and China-wise really has come a long way. But I think we have also seen some shifts about how we think about the Internet and what it's meant to be. 20, 30 years ago, I think, China has this particular phrase, we call ourselves netizens, meaning citizens of the Internet. It's an inspiration that I think Chinese people hold for themselves and for generations to come, what Internet means to them. And I think, in the past 20, 30 years, we've come a long way, but recently there are also different frameworks for thinking about the Internet and what it means to China and Chinese people. There are 2 phrases that I will highlight here. One is internet sovereignty, and the other phrase is information sovereignty. So these are ways of thinking about the Internet that have been framed by the state for sure, for thinking about what the Internet should be. And of course, sovereignty emphasizes control over data, control over its people as well. So these have different connotations and can be read quite differently. And second, I would highlight the fact that there's a centrality of policy-making power with regard to the Internet. We used to joke that, China, there are so many different ministries and entities making policy about the Internet, having too many cooks in the kitchen, right? We probably have this problem everywhere else, but in recent years, there's definitely a trend of centrality or centralization of policy-making power related to the Internet in China. And third, I will say a few words about privacy and security. Since this seems to be the theme that we wanted to tackle. One of the things that concerns me a little bit as I do research on Chinese Internet is there is a very profound lack of concern for privacy. For instance, if you browse through the kinds of meetings in China on Internet of Things, there is a glaring absence of the word privacy. And so it is not something, I guess, we research and we talk a lot about, but I think this is a sort of a very visible gap of discourse and conversations. And in addition to that, I think a big initiative that has been rolled out recently in China is of interest to many people on issues of privacy and security. That is a system called social credit system. So each and every individual potentially in China might be given a credit based on this person's credibility, but also involving elements of online activities being taken into consideration for this credit score. So I'll leave right there and so perhaps have more opportunities later for discussion. But this is the sort of current landscape of Chinese Internet.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Min. And Limor, you participated in our ETAP event in Tel Aviv, and I think you have a very unique perspective in terms of similarities that you discovered and also some very unique elements of privacy-related issues.
Yes, I'd really like to share with you that experience and start by saying that we started looking at biometric access control systems and procedures and databases at that event. And for me, it was a good opportunity to share my experience in the past few years as a regulator, since we had an Israeli project to do with the identification, the smart identification in Israel. And there were various elements of privacy involved, of decisions that needed to be made in the technological part of the project that had to do exactly with the point of bringing together the people who are doing the IT, who are doing the design, who are making the decisions, and us, the legal people, the privacy people. And decisions made during that project are decisions that decide whether we would have less privacy or more privacy. At that event, we also had a participant from India who shared with us his experience from a similar project that was going on in India at the same time. And we finished by having a very practical list of recommendations for engineers, for designers, for the people in the industry, how to incorporate privacy in that type of project. For today, I actually did a similar experiment on the topic of IoTs that I would like to share with you through simple examples, several simple examples. One of the principles in privacy protection is transparency, how you communicate to the end users, to the consumers, what's being done with their data, with their information. If we're looking at IoTs that are meant to be very small, low in power consumption, low in computing power, in order to introduce privacy protection, in order to create some form of notice to consumers, we need a user interface. This is something that if it's not done from the start, there is no way to communicate with this device in order to make it available to let consumers know what's being done with their data. Another important thing is purpose limitation. Data that is collected from individuals can only be used to the purposes that they agreed to the purposes that were told from the start. Now, if the defaults of IoTs are transmitting all information, all data back to the processors, or the defaults are collecting all data that is created during the process, we have a conflict. How do we limit the purposes to which the data is being used? This is something that for me, as a policymaker and as a regulator who does enforcement, I was responsible for managing the enforcement department for the past 8 years. This is something very difficult to come and enforce and sanction companies for doing that when they say, but by design, this device, this product, this chip, it cannot do what you're asking me to do. So this is very important and crucial, I think, to start and talking from the start. Privacy by design is meant to be a part of the process where we bring together the people who make the design and the people who make the policy, and we try to think about how to actually implement policy inside the product. Another example I can give you is opt-in, opt-out decisions. In my type of regulation, it is very important whether the consumer or the person opt-ins or opt-outs. Again, without a user interface, without something to be able to interact with the devices, with the IoTs, you don't even have the chance to decide how you do that. I can tell you about a recent case that was settled with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. My colleagues in the US, they charged Nomi Technologies, a company that deploys sensors in stores and shopping centers, etc. Not even the shop itself, not even Target or whatever, Macy's. It was the company that was deploying the sensors. And they were hidden in a way that people did not know that information about them is collected inside the store and also from passers-by outside the store. And they were charged with by the FTC, and they settled the case, and they have changed their practices. So these are all instances where I think that if we address these issues beforehand, we can make better solutions. Just last example for you to think about for the rest of the discussion, security. A big part of privacy is security. It also correlates with cybersecurity requirements, and it's very important for privacy. If we look at CCTV camera recorders, they may have passwords and users, administrators that cannot be changed. So even if you want to make the products safer and not be part to botnet attacks, then how do you address that? How do you connect with a device and change passwords if you don't have that built into the systems in the first place? So I think these are just a few short examples of things that may be better for all of us as a society. It's things that we need to address right now in order to create the infrastructure for better privacy protection.
Those are excellent points, Limor. Thank you. And I think actually what you said makes a great starting point for you on talk about, because Department of Homeland Security participated in 2 of our events in the United States and brought a fantastic contribution talking about a system-level approach, basically big picture approach to security and privacy by design. So I hope you can reflect on that.
Sure. So within the United States and the Department of Homeland Security, we have a lot of work to do domestically and with other departments and agencies to develop the right policy to be able to adapt with the newest trends of technologies such as IoT. We encourage a thriving and a vibrant marketplace through our all initiatives and a multi-stakeholder environment with all the work that we do to share best practices and the development of standards for interoperable solutions. So we encourage an ecosystem of a secure and reliable capacity for building the products and services and the solutions that we need to coordinate with the public and private sector, and to develop those solutions that are shared for be able to give us the capabilities that we need to go on with our lives. We also work to increase community and consumer awareness and the understanding of security challenges that we have to be able to build those common solutions. So picking up on the last point in the previous ETAP forums within IEEE, we are constantly looking for promoting that multi-stakeholder environment. And within the Department of Homeland Security, we work with other private sector entities, other stakeholders, departments and agencies to develop what it's called the Integrated Adapted Cyber Defense, which is a very broad initiative within the department and some of the other departments and agencies to be able to develop the right architectures and concepts that will enable operators and the system owners to detect and defend cybersecurity systems and be able to adapt to the cyber threat in a cyber relevant time, to be able to detect and protect and at a machine speed. So we developed different products and services that help us within those areas. Specifically, some of the foundational activities that we do are automation to enable automated sense making, decision making, response to providing real-time network defense within our enterprises. We also look into information sharing to enable that rapid share of indicators and analytics and effective responses between enterprises. We also, one of the other foundational activities is interoperability to enable integration across diverse commercial products and services, which is stepping back from the proprietary solutions and building products and services that can interoperate and build interconnectivity for sharing that trust and privacy that we need for getting more into the areas that we all care about. So we do a lot of activities that are within the standards work, and at the intra-enterprise we do what it's called develop a message fabric to provide a foundation for supporting secure and reliable data exchanges for interoperability of those products within IoT is a huge area that we're trying to look into, how we connect those devices, how we secure those devices, how we embed the necessary mechanisms and security practices to be able for us to interoperate with that level of trust, baking security, supporting common data models for command and control, simplifying the integration of diverse sensors and analytics and orchestration decision engines for a more standardized network management platform. So we see the IACD initiative as a key aspect of what we're doing within the future, and how do we create that multi-stakeholder level of trust and engagement at the domestic level, but also looking into the future on how we expand to forums like this for the international engagement. The Department of Homeland Security recently released on November 15, 2016, the Strategic Principles for Security in IoT, which is a document that's freely available through the DHS website. If you look into it, it lays out some principles. The first one is to incorporate security at the design phase for those IoT devices. The second one is to advance security updates and vulnerability management. The third one is to build on proven security practices. The fourth is prioritize security measures according to potential impact. Number 5 is promote transparency across IoT. And number 6 is connect carefully and deliberately. Within those strategic principles, we have 4 lines of effort. The first one is to coordinate across federal departments and agencies to engage with IoT stakeholders and other communities, writ large, domestically and internationally. Build awareness on risk associated with IoT stakeholders, identify and advance initiatives for incorporating IoT security, and contribute to international standards development processes for IoT. So all those areas do help us get into domestically into the areas that we care about for security and privacy. So with that.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
It's a great contribution, and I think what's actually very interesting to note, a lot of things you just said resonate very well with what Limor said before, you know, especially in the areas of transparency when we talk about consumers' rights. So it's very interesting to see that even in this table we're already finding similarities and synergies. And that bridges very well into the discussion I would like you to touch upon. CINIC had been a tremendous supporter and participant of our events from basically the very beginning, from the very first event in San Jose, California, now almost 3 years ago. I would love to hear your perspective, and by the way, thank you for that. I would like to hear your perspective, what you found almost like in a cross-section of similarities and differences among those events, and especially differences among countries.
Yeah, thanks, Oleg. And as one of the domain name registry in the world, so the first task of the CINIC is try to make our dossier and domain name root system be stable. So we have set up more than 30 DNS nodes in the world, and we also developed our self-anti-DDoS device to try to identify what kind of query is the DDoS query. But we do think that it's still not enough, because DDoS attack is very, very hard to solve. So I think maybe it's a big challenge for us. It's how can we make some cooperated ways across the nations, across the institutions, and we can share our resources to anti-DDoS attack and try to make our internet infrastructure be stable and try to make a lot of people can safely connected to the infrastructure. And not only because the DDoS attack, but also for the future Internet of Things. And I think that for the future Internet of Things, the naming queries could be much higher than nowadays for the Internet. So I think maybe we can try to improve such kind of infrastructures. And another thing for CINIC is try to attract more connections from the non-English speakers. So we support the internationalization domain names, for example, the Chinese domain name and the email address internationalization email account. We think that such kind of local-friendly identifier can attract more connection from the non-English speaker. And another point is that because CINIC attended the first ETAP forum and the Beijing forum, and we identify some common discussion is about the data privacy. So I think it's an interesting point that even not only for the Internet now, but also for the Internet of Things, and how can we make sure that the data obtained and processed and stored, all of the process can protect the privacy. And it's I think nowadays it's not standard ways. And the end users do not know if he buy a service or if he buy a IoT devices, what kind of privacy protection level is. So maybe in the future, IEEE or IETF or ISO, any other international organization should think about to make some international standard to standardize the privacy protection level and make some third-party organization to evaluate which level of each devices, of each hardware, of each software is, and maybe can put some signs on the devices or hardwares. And just like nowadays, the electronic devices can have the level signs about the energy consumers. So for the future, maybe the end user can know that what kind of levels they can protect on the IoT devices, and it depends on the end users to whether they want to use this kind of IoT devices. And another big challenge, I think, is that the new technology can also challenge the privacy protection. For example, the big data, the data analytics, and a lot of new technology can identify the peoples from the anonymized data, even anonymized data. So for in the future, maybe we should need to figure out what kind of ways can identify the anonymous data. I think is another big challenge for us. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So maybe that could be one of the actionable points from panel today is let's kick off this activity and let's try to define the standard. So if the panel agrees, why don't we make that as a follow-up action item and try to work together to implement it? Make sense?
Yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great contribution. Well, and last but not least, Osama, we had tremendous events in India, and we had a lot of participation from India and other ETAP events. But I think the most fascinating, what I heard from you today was your opening statement about India as it is today. So I would welcome your discussion
Yeah,
here.
thank you very much. Yeah, India is interesting because, you know, we are 1.3 billion and always a center of attraction for consumer goods and, you know, for selling products, including technology. Technology is a great part of digital inclusion. Digital is without technology is nowhere. So I would like to make some background since we are talking under the framework of connecting the unconnected. We are a country of 1.3 billion and give a lot of example of how connected. We are also the second highest, most connected country, and also the second highest in social media. And these are great numbers. It's something like everybody thinks India speaks English, but only 5% of India speaks English. And that is enough for the world to count them as one of the highest English-speaking country. Similarly, in connectivity as well, we are only 400 million people connected and second highest, but we have 800 to 900 million people not connected. So we are also one of the most unconnected country. And we have great examples of how digital inclusion itself is a digital exclusion. I would like to share 3 examples. We have about 400 to 500 million people pay 250 rupees for 1 page of printout, which is 250 times the cost that you and me pay in town. It's a serious digital exclusion example, or life of unconnected people, only because of policy and technology, because policy says that you have to be online, therefore all the government documents are online, and therefore a poor person cannot have it without having a printout, and they have to go 5-10 kilometers, which pays cost, and you cannot go for work for the day. So it all costs to about 250 rupees, and we pay less than a rupee in towns. So that's a side effect of policy and technology both, and that's the reason I'm mentioning it. We talked about biometric, about India example. We all have national identities, and so we are a part of the database. And when you go to get your ration, since you are entitled for a ration for the month, they ask you to put your finger on biometric. And there are about 500 million people in India who are daily wage workers whose finger do not match to biometric machine. And therefore you do not get your wages and do not get your ration for the month. So the digital inclusion itself is a digital exclusion, and why it is interesting is a piece of biometric machine is a piece of technology which became a part of the policy that we make, which became a part of exclusion that it has created to the people who have no choice. So it's something like policy is technology and technology is policy, and people suffer in between policies and technologies, because all the policies are made by the government to serve the people, but all the technologies are made by the private sector to sell them as a consumer. So there is a huge, interest differentiation or in both. And so this is and people, the masses suffer, and rest of the world, which is half the rest of the world, which is suffering because of being not connected, is actually not the only one who is suffering because of not being connected, but another 70-80% people who are actually connected are suffering because of being connected. So connectivity is something which is still a piece of technology, is still a piece of policy, but but hasn't become a consumer good. It hasn't become a mass consumable product without understanding the technology and without understanding the policy. And that's the challenge that we need to understand extremely well. And I'll give you a last example which actually mixed all the 3. We work in remote areas, and we started trying unlicensed spectrum and wireless mesh technology to connect the poorest of the poor in remote areas, because telcos usually do not go to remote areas because it doesn't serve their purpose in terms of per person's connectivity cost. And therefore we started trying this technology, and very successful in terms of connecting the people at a very low cost using wireless technology and unlicensed spectrum. But the fact is, I cannot serve the people without having a license in a larger scale. I can have few communities, I can have few examples, but cannot do it at a larger scale. And so one of the things that organization like IEEE, or the people who sit on the policy, it's very important to see that how last mile connectivity and last mile access is not only a subject of telcos and not only subject of large spectrums, but also a subject of micro enterprises and also a subject of civil society, where the civil society and micro enterprises get a license to connect to the people. It's like a product, So I get a connectivity, backhaul connectivity, and I further distribute it in my community and manage it. But this is not available at a mass scale. And that's very, very important to see that how technology and policy merge together to think from the perspective of people's perspective and social enterprises perspective rather than only large scale enterprise perspective. Thank you.
No, fantastic. I think those are great insights. And well, we have only a few minutes kind of left towards the end of our session. So I would like to suggest if there are any questions from participants here in the audience or online, if you'd like to ask a question, you're welcome to do so. Please.
I'm Mike Nelson. I work for Cloudflare, which is a web security firm based in San Francisco, and I do global public policy. In China, we don't operate, but we do have a partnership with Baidu. They operate our equipment in data centers with the same service we use. So we're very interested in how we can work with China and how we can understand the new Chinese cybersecurity regulations. One of the problems we see around the world, not just in China, it's also in India, also in the United States, is that regulation gets written and it can be interpreted in 5 different ways. So I'd ask our 2 China experts if they have any advice on how to interpret Chinese regulations and any sources of insight we can get on what those laws really mean. There's both a new law on domain names and registration and another one on cybersecurity and what companies need to do to operate in the Chinese market. And if you want to talk about Indian tech policy, that would also be useful.
We've heard about these new regulations, being drafted, and to a large extent, without too much consultation. And so I think there are a lot of questions that are being raised at the moment. And to be honest, it's very hard to read the minds of Chinese policymakers. And I guess one of the most direct way is to ask them to clarify exactly what is meant. And I think there have been many iterations of drafts and translations already. And the details are always, what's difficult is the details and how it's implemented. I think how it's drafted is one thing, and how it's implemented and interpreted is quite another. So you can talk about this, high-level abstract concepts, but when it comes to implementation, I think it creates more problems, I think, yeah. So I think the law is drafted often in a way that is abstract, and how it's interpreted and how it's implemented is really where the rubber hits the road, yeah.
Hello, Mike. I'm very sorry that I'm not the policy people and I focus on the technology issues. So I'm not very familiar with this kind of new regulation. But if you like, I can try to make sure some kind of specific question for you, because I'm the Chinese. I can understand the language, and I can ask my colleague or other friends to make sure what kind of the really meaning of it. If you like, we can contact offline. Thanks.
I'd very much appreciate that. Any views from India on how to make sense of telecom regulations?
Well, telecom regulation is just a telecom regulation for the telecom companies. Telecom regulation has to look for people, to regulate things. But one of the things that recently came out of TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, very interesting, is that they floated a recommendation paper on public Wi-Fi system, and gave wireless and unlicensed spectrum as one of the examples that we have created as this is how you can connect people. So, and they took a lot of interest from civil society and others, and looks like that the government is interested in reaching out to the people and making it open to the people in the line of community radio. You know, community radio license in India is open to civil society organization. They can seek a community radio license and they can broadcast 10-kilometer radius with a 50-watt transmitter. So similar philosophy, if it is given on last mile connectivity in terms of internet and broadband, there is a possibility that it can happen at a large scale.
Yeah. I had the privilege of working on internet policy in the Clinton White House, and we had two simple rules. The first was, first, do no harm, and the second was, when in doubt, allow as many options as possible.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, the Congress had a different rule, which was write vague laws that result in lawsuits that last for 4 or 5 years. The good news, though, with that system is that even though it relies on lots of lawyers spending lots of money on billable hours, you do finally get a clear, single interpretation of what the law means. And I think that's what's missing in China, that we just have no way to force
Well, Mike,
development of a solution, of a clear implementation.
maybe there is a path, and actually what you just said kind of gave me an idea. Maybe there is a place for an effort that can be cross-country effort and driven by all of us here at the table, which essentially we can focus on best practices. So we can come together and bring the expertise from all of the relevant countries and try to figure out. Technology is global, right? And your interest, obviously, is to leverage economy of scale for the products that you build, which is very normal. And I think that benefits everybody around the world. So maybe it's one of the actionable items we can take out of this discussion is an exploratory discussion of creation of this multi-country, multi-stakeholder activity where we can bring experts in both sides, technology and policy, and see if we can create those best practices for implementation.
You know, I think and getting the lawyers talking to the engineers is what's really going to be important. But you only answered half the problem.
Yes.
This morning in the Internet and Jurisdiction panel at 9 o'clock, they discussed the idea of a best practices database and a worst practices database. And there's an example of this from a group called Net Choice. If you do a Google search for I awful and I awesome, you'll get lists of laws in the United States developed at the state level that were either really good or really bad.
Right.
And just highlighting how law is colliding with bad law is colliding with technology, and holding back some of these great new technologies would be something the IEEE could do, and it would be a very powerful thing.
Well, I invite your participation, and let's take it offline, and maybe it's something that we can kick off in reasonably short term, because I think that actually would be something very interesting for everybody. Yes, please.
The engineers are the ones who run into the problems directly, so.
Just to add to the discussion, we actually have a practice of doing consultations before every piece of policy is rolled out, and we strongly would like the public to participate. I have to say that in practice, we get many complaints of our policies being not attached to the real world and less comments on actual policies and legislation that has to do with technology that we're working on. So to be short, you have to put your money where your mouth is. I'm sorry to be blunt, because we're craving input and we're getting very little.
Well, I wasn't complaining about Israel. You have some very good technologists in your policy process.
But I think that really is at the heart of the Internet Initiative, is to be that forum for attorneys, policymakers, and so forth, to meet with technologists, to have that cross-pollination and information sharing.
Question down.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, my name is Corinne Kat. I work with Article 19, which is a human rights NGO. And I wanted to touch a little bit on China's new draft for Internet domain name management rules, especially as we're focusing on how to bring together technologists, policy people, to actually make the Internet more inclusive. And something that has been very worrying, and recently a joint statement by several civil society organizations has gone out, is the fact that in this specific draft, which very much limits freedom of expression online, there has been cooperation between VeriSign in the US, between ICANN and the IETF, which pretty much means that in certain cases, corporate actors are implementing national laws in a way that essentially violate human rights. And so I would be interested to hear to what extent this is something that factors into this discussion, because it seems to be something we haven't really touched upon.
Okay, anybody would like to comment?
Ted Hardy, more of a clarifying question. You noted VeriSign as a corporate actor, but you also noted the IETF. I'm certainly not aware of the IETF doing anything with the Chinese government on this, and as executive director of the IEB, I probably would have heard about it. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
I'm not the one who's working on the IETF section, but the people who are have definitely verified this. So maybe we can discuss further offline to make sure that
Okay,
this is
so I've
checked.
talked to
Because
Niels and others,
we have
but-
run this by the IETF, and we have run this by the IEB. They're aware of this statement being out there.
So I'm on the IEB, and I don't think I've gotten a message from you about this. So let's talk offline and make sure that you're not accidentally talking to the Interactive Advertising Board, which is a different IEB.
So I think this question kind of more belongs to an offline discussion, sounds like. Okay, any other questions from the audience here? I think we're actually running a little bit over time.
Yeah.
Yes. How much time do we have? Okay. Fantastic. So we can stay till tomorrow morning, right?
Until we get very hungry.
All right, another 5 minutes and we can go. So any other questions from the audience? If not, I would like to ask one finishing question. So we talked about a lot of great opportunities here. We talked about 2 initiatives that we can probably launch as a result of the discussion of this panel. Just a very quick, maybe 10-second snapshot. We started this initiative 3 years ago, almost. We brought on multiple occasions technologies and policy developers together in discussions like this one. We discovered a lot of issues. From your personal perspective, the greatest benefit you see from those discussions so far? Anybody would like to start?
I'll start from the IEEE side. I think what's important to me is that, we spend most of our days as society executive director. We deal with engineers in their society. Internet Initiative gives us an opportunity to bring other people into that discussion and for us to participate in other discussions we wouldn't normally be a part of. And I think we've heard myriad examples of why that's so critical. So for me, that's what it's all about. And when I'm at a conference like IGF, this is a chance to talk to non-engineers, which for me is personally exciting because I talk to a lot of engineers all the time, and so this is broadening for us. And so it's an opportunity for us to get other folks involved in what we're doing and help inform the engineering initiatives that we have going on within the IEEE.
So it's really about connecting unconnected.
Yeah, in many, many ways. Well said. Well said.
For me, it's the opposite. I'm from the academic world and don't talk to a lot of engineers. So it's an opportunity for me to actually get connected to engineers and talk about ideas and values in a way I think that also are important to them, right? So this is really exciting to me. The other aspect is connecting sort of the missing dots and unconnected, people. And I think people make things happen, and I have to do my work, but also get to know people who have shared interests and shared goals. Yeah, so this is very, very helpful for IEEE to be in this space, to connect a lot of us.
Yeah, for me it's also a great experience to be talking to non-lawyers. Plus, yeah, lawyers have a really, really bad reputation, and being one, I can tell jokes about them. But moreover, the thing is, I was attending privacy conferences and privacy workshops for quite a few years, and it felt like we're preaching to the choir, and we're all convinced that privacy is not dead, and we were talking to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I actually figured out this past summer in Tel Aviv when I met Oleg and the IEEE group, and I realized that it's much more challenging to speak to people who are not convinced that privacy is still alive, to the people who are actually trying to implement our policies. And for me, it's a great experience to get these insights, to get other viewpoints, to talk to people from different disciplines and different ideology, defaults. And that's, for me, the main interaction.
Fantastic, thank you. One?
I would say interoperability and integration for actionable information sharing for us to be able to look into what best practices there are out there to commonly face the challenges that we see every day within the cybersecurity areas. I think that that's very important.
Great, thank you. Ning?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to communicate with the policy people and the technology people, and these two sides maybe have a totally different ideology and language. So it's a tough task for us, but I think it really makes sense if the policymakers do not understand the technology, the policy cannot be easily implemented. And if the technology guys do not understand the policy, maybe they will create some kind of useless technology. So it really makes sense, and I hope the IEEE ETAP forum can keep on doing this great platform for these kind of two guys to communicate together furtherly. Thanks.
Thank you. And Osama?
So, yeah, IEEE can do it, and that's the reason I'm trying to tell this. And just to add what he said, that we don't understand the language of policymakers and technical people, I would like to just say one sentence. We are looking at the whole world being connected, okay? But are we really looking at who will manage those connectivity? Because that is still seen as a technical assignment or a technical job. So can we think of creating barefoot internet engineers, all over the world, and IEEE takes the responsibility to demystify technology as a household understanding of how you can run your own Wi-Fi, how you can run your own internet, how you can, rather than running around all the time, my internet is down, I can't do anything, Because we already think that it's a technical issue, It's not a plumbing issue of my bathroom. Or it's not my kitchen issue where I can also cook, at least I can make omelette, or something like that. So can I screw tight, or can we play around with technology to the level where it becomes a household understanding of management of technology and demystify technology in policy for a simple person who is using it? Because if we are using it, we should know how to use it and we should know how to manage it. As simple as that. And then only we'll be able to participate in the discourse of whether it is good for me or not good for me. Thank you.
So it's education. One closing question, very quick.
Have you turned to the remote moderator to find out if anybody has asked questions online, or whether there's any interest in tweets?
We got nothing.
Okay.
We got nothing. All right. That brings us to the end of our session. I really would like to thank our panelists. Exceptional job. Thank you. You brought fantastic insights, and the depth of the discussion was really, really exciting. And we have 2 actionable items as a result of it, which we'll try to take forward. And stay tuned. We'll essentially publish something to everybody interested. If you're interested, let us know in participation, and we'll get you involved. So thank you very much. Great job. I look forward to future discussions.